Good morning, students. Today I will explain you the tissue respiration. So now let us draw the diagram for tissue respiration. Firstly, look at this. Firstly, we are making this blood vessel. This is the capillary which is being drawn. Capillary is the smallest blood vessel in which the actual exchange of gases is occurring, right? So in the capillary we have as the red blood cells. You can show it like this. Number of red blood cells are flowing, right? And then you can also show the white blood cells in the capillary, right? So these are some white blood cells. White blood cells have got lobed or different kind of nucleus is present in the white blood cells. So these are some white blood cells shown. So let us label also. So we have drawn the capillary. This is the white blood cells. And these are the red blood cells. Okay, now let us go inside. This is the tissue area. So in the tissue we can show the tissue cells. We have different tissue cells, right? These are different cells, right? Different cells of the body with a nucleus in the center, obviously. These cells are forming a tissue. So tissue is a group of cells which are performing the similar function and they are having the similar structure as well. So these cells in a tissue are floating in a fluid which is called the tissue fluid. So this is all a fluid in which these cells are suspended, and this fluid is called the tissue fluid, right? So let us label these also. So this is your tissue cell. And this fluid which is present in between these cells, this is forming the tissue fluid. Right? Okay, now let us talk about the gaseous exchange. So two kind of gases are getting exchanged. One is the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is present in the cells, obviously, right? It is released by the cells, and this carbon dioxide is to be transported to the capillary, right? It is to be transported, it is to be given back to the capillary, right? So from the cell the carbon dioxide is going to the capillary, and from the capillary these red blood cells are carrying the oxygen. So they are carrying the oxygen and they are transporting it to the cell, right? So this oxygen is there which is going from these red blood cells. Oxygen is being transported by the red blood cells in the form of oxyhemoglobin, right? Oxyhemoglobin, you know this. So this oxyhemoglobin from the red blood cell is to be transported to these tissue cells. So now how is it occurring? Just see carefully. The carbon dioxide which is produced inside the tissue cell, when it has to go to the capillary, it has to travel through this tissue fluid. So it first enters into the tissue fluid. Carbon dioxide goes into the tissue fluid first, and then from the tissue fluid it enters into the capillary, right? Similarly, oxygen from the red blood cell, right? This is the red blood cell. It gives the oxygen. The oxygen first enters into the tissue fluid, and then from the tissue fluid it is entering into the tissue cell, right? So let us just revise the parts of respiration again. First part is the breathing. Breathing is the physical process in which we take the oxygen in. And when we take the oxygen in, the oxygen gets into the capillaries, and inside the capillaries, oxygen gets into the red blood cells. Red blood cells pick up the oxygen, form the oxyhemoglobin. Now, red blood cells are transporting the oxyhemoglobin throughout the body, and it is transported by these capillaries. It is getting into the capillaries, and from the capillaries, this oxygen is to be received by all the tissue cells, all the cells in the body, right, which are forming different kinds of tissues. So all the cells should receive this oxygen. This oxygen from the red blood cell, it enters into the tissue fluid. Before it enters into the cell, it has to pass through the tissue fluid. It enters into the tissue fluid, and then it enters into the cell. And oxygen is used up in the cell by the cellular respiration. That is, the cell, it will undergo the respiration. Oxygen combines with glucose to give us energy, and what is released as a byproduct? Carbon dioxide. And now this carbon dioxide, again, it first enters into the tissue fluid and then enters into the red blood cells, right? Red blood cells, again, it forms carbaminohemoglobin, and carbaminohemoglobin is again transported through the capillaries, and then through other blood vessels it reaches the lungs, and through the nose it is taken out of the body. So this is the process of tissue respiration. Thank you, children.